Good morning. Welcome back, all you Regs and all you Shinies. Welcome to the most mediocre podcast in the Star Wars universe, the 1313 podcast. I'm Tommy.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm Jackson.
And welcome back to another episode of Have a Chat, our series where we invite other creators and members of the community onto the show, and we kind of just talk Star Wars. And today, we have a very special guest. We have Nerdzoic.
Woohoo! What's up?
So, Nerdzoic, tell us a little bit about what your channel is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have had this channel about a year and a half now, almost 2 years. And it is all about embracing your nerdiness through toys. Largely Star Wars, obviously, hence why I'm here. But it's all about the action figures, the nostalgia, and escaping all the crap we deal with as adults to go back to a simpler time.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're all big collectors.
Yeah, I can't tell.
Well, particularly the Black Series, Lego, and then we've been dabbling in Sideshow a little bit more as time goes on.
And now I'm starting to dabble in Marvel Legends, and every time I see a NECA figure in the store, I'm like, tempted.
It's dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
What? Sure. Sorry, I had a 7-year-old visit for a minute there. Yes, it's very dangerous. Let me tell you, the more you get deeper into it, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, we that's how my Black Series was. I started, it was just a couple figures, whatever. Oh, this one's cool, that one's cool. Then it was like, oh, let me just get every Mandalorian character. And then it was, oh, every single trooper ever made doesn't sound so bad. So you kind of get stuck in it a little bit, but not in a bad way. Definitely not in a bad way.
Listen, I have so many toy lines started, and I don't think I've ever finished a collection of anything. I have collecting ADD where I'm like, oh, shiny thing. Got to go start buying that now. It's bad. It's real bad.
Yeah. I feel like that's how I kind of am, because I was like, my main focus was Lego. I collect lots of Lego Star Wars. Then I was just kind of like, ooh, Marvel Legends line doesn't look too bad. And I started getting really into horror movies, and I was just like, ooh, NECA makes really cool figures. So I was just kind of like boing, boing, boing.
Yeah, it is. It's all over the place. And I got into the business full on a few months ago. So now I'm really all over with it. It's crazy.
So that actually, I was going to ask you about that. So you have your own online shop. NerdzoicToys, I believe it's called, right?
Correct.
And I did pre-order the George Lucas and Stormtrooper disguise through that site because I missed it on the major retailers. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna dabble in this. So so how was that process for you? How did it start?
It started the whole Nerdzoic thing started as I got fired because of the pandemic. Entire position got eliminated. I had a side business that was going decently as a restaurant consultant, but the pandemic destroyed that too. And it was like, okay, well, what the hell do I do now? I'm like, I don't do nothing. I'm just going to make videos about toys because I need to learn how to do this because I wanted to do it for my consulting stuff. And I had no intention of it going anywhere, but it did really well. So I'm like, you know what can I do from a business standpoint? If I wanted to make this my full-time thing, what would I have to do? And that it led one thing to another to the toys, and now I'm selling them, and it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. People keep I probably get 5 messages a day from people saying, "How do I get started?" And my response is always, "Don't." It's a journey. It's incredibly low profit margins, incredibly tough competition because you're competing against Walmart and Target in a lot of ways. So you got to have something to differentiate yourself. But you still can't go crazy with pricing because, let's face it, that is a huge factor. I can go up $1 or $2 over Walmart because I can offer a service way better than they can. But you start doing more than that and you price yourself out of the market. So it is a major journey. I'm now I never intended for it to be as big as it's gotten already as far as what I'm carrying. I probably add a new line every week. It's again, it used to be my shiny object collecting syndrome. Now it's my shiny object. Ooh, a new figure line. And it's nuts.
I was going to say, I watched because we've actually been watching a lot of your content for quite some time now. We watch it, especially with our dad. And then I know you had your video that you posted recently about running your toy store. specifically. And then in the one section as well, I know you got to mention saying how like it's really exciting because you get to know a lot of like the code names and such for a lot of the figures.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I guess now as a collector, that must feel really good to maybe have some of that insider intelligence that people don't really get to know months in advance even now.
It totally does. The only bad part of it is you can't say it per se, but let's just say that people out there who are getting like these news breaks, the Toy Internationals, Jedi Business, Rebel Scums of the world, they have sources. Those sources would all, I'm not saying it is me because they've been around far longer than I have, but it's people like me who get the information but can't say the information. So, but yeah, it is. It's really cool just being like, yep, I know that kind of, you know, like the best example I have is everyone was so surprised by G.I. Joe we got a Croc Master with a crocodile. I'm like, I figured that out 6 months ago. You give me a figure with a pet. I'm like, okay, well, we limited it down. It's got to be Croc Master. And I don't even know that much about G.I. Joe, but it's like the hunt. I got to figure it out now.
That's I know one thing about like fan channels, like in general, that have come to prefer over like Walmart and Target and stuff is the shipping. Because with fan channels, there's actually some level of care put into the shipping. Because I can't tell you how many times I've gotten stuff through Walmart or Target that are exclusives, and they show up, and if they're on a bubble card, the card, like with the Clone Wars figures from like I think it was May or June of this year. It was like those figures would like, I don't understand that they would fold the card backs in half to fit them into the boxes. And I would pull it out of the box and go, well, I wanted to have this in the package, but I guess not anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, I'm still trying to experiment with like, I can ship anything to the point where it's going to be very hard for it to get damaged. My wife does all the shipping now. So I do all the webs. Well, she actually does a lot of the website stuff too. I'm pretty much just the front of it, making purchasing decisions. But she does all the shipping, and she's incredibly good at it, making sure nothing gets damaged. Now we're at the point where we're trying to figure out, because the more shipping materials you use, the bigger the box. Now we're having to raise the shipping price. So you don't want to do that either. So it's trying to find that happy medium. I've recently gotten to literally just straight up emailing people, hey, are you going to open these? Because if you are, I can cut you a break of like $5, you know, and ship them like in the actual factory Hasbro case versus taking them out of the case, wrapping them in bubble wrap. So a lot of people are doing that, but a lot of people are also very like, well, I opened them, but I want them to be in good condition. I'm like, listen, what do you think I'm going to do to these things? I'm not going to case Ventura them. But yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. That was a big thing for me when I started this. I actually, you can see on my floor over here, it's about $1,500 worth of Figure Shield products. If you're familiar with them, they make cases for pretty much every type of 6-inch and 3 3/4-inch figure. So I'll be, as soon as I can figure out how to do it from a technical standpoint, offering the ability to just buy it and then have it shipped right in the case so that it is leaving here minty fresh and getting there super minty fresh. It doesn't even matter what they put on top of it in the mail truck. But yeah, it's definitely a thing. And I know I'm a mint collector for some things, and it's crazy because like the stuff gets beat up sometimes it doesn't. Certain distributors are terrible with it. Other ones are great. It's different each time.
You want to grab that Lego set to show them?
Yeah, absolutely.
I recently picked up the Mandalorian armor Lego set
for a present.
He got it for me for a birthday present, and as you can see, the mail was not too kind.
In there.
Yeah, the mail was not too kind to it, to say the least.
Yeah, they shipped it in a soft and like basically like the bags, like they just threw it in that, and I was like, how does that constitute for that? Because even with like the Walmart Bad Batch wave that came out recently, I bought 2 of the Coruscant Guard Troopers, one to be the officer, one to customize and to take the pauldron off. And so the first one that I got came in a box, and the second one came at the exact same time, and then came in the soft like
the
bag,
bubble bag.
In the bubble, I was like, does like 1 + 1 not equal 2 anymore?
I'm really hoping like it's bad. Like I got the double-edged sword. I love the old toy hunts, but like Walmart and Target are ruining it completely, and now they're doing the other way. You walk into a Walmart or a Target now, not so much Star Wars because that distribution's really slowed down right now. But Marvel, they've started to order solid cases of things. So they're getting, instead of assorted cases, solid cases, 1 or 2 per store. But good old Target and Walmart distribution aren't looking at the actual cases to make sure every store gets one of each. You go into one store, you have 30 Cyclopses. You go into another store, you got 25 Rogues, and they're not, it's, I mean, for me, it's good, but for everybody else, it's not. But it does suck because they're going to end up saying, I imagine one day they'll say, well, we're just not going to carry this stuff. And again, that's probably not bad for me, but it does suck for the community part of it.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, we talk about it all the time on the podcast. Yes. Like, when we were kids, you would go to the toy section of like a Walmart or a Target or wherever, and there were just every peg had figures on it, and it was just such a good assortment of figures. If you wanted a Darth Vader, you could always just go get a Darth Vader. If you wanted Boba Fett, you could just go get Boba Fett. And so now it's like, largely in part because Toys R Us left the States, but they're going to make a comeback here. But
we'll see.
We'll
I'm
see,
skeptical.
Yeah. I'm cautiously optimistic, I'll put it. But
I'll be, if it opens, I will be there opening day.
Oh, absolutely.
So
I think it opens next year, right?
Yeah.
They said it's like 2 months away, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, if they open, I might make a road trip to go check it out.
I know there's a
Macy's
near us. There's a Macy's near us that started to get the Toys R Us kind of like conversion into it. We did a figure hunting vlog not too long ago, and we just went in there and we like looked across like the children's clothes, and we just see Jeffrey just from like across the store. We're like, oh, it's him. So
you get over there and it's just a cheap just like really you guys bought the name and that's it. And if this doesn't work out, I'm doing literally, I already clocked it. I'm 8.5 hours away from the Canadian border to get into Montreal and hit Toys R Us because I'm like jonesing at this point.
If you look on Macy's website, they have like a couple like TVC figures now, like under their Toys R Us section. But like they have like the Emperor, and that's like the only like newer one. The rest of them is just kind of like Landos and stuff.
Yeah, the Landos that don't sell. They always keep making these Landos thinking that something good's gonna happen, and it never does. Like the last wave of Black Series, or 2 waves ago with Tech and Aura Singh, they packed that General Lando, and people wonder why he's sitting everywhere.
The Lonely Lando is what we call him.
Lonely Lando is a very popular name for that. Like it doesn't matter the series. Like you can just be like Skiff Guard Lando, boom. General Lando, boom. Empire Lando, boom. He's everywhere.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I mean, it was decent at first. I thought when the wave was coming out, because you wouldn't even see Lando because everybody would buy up the whole wave. But then, yes, gradually over time, everybody got a Lando because nobody wanted it. And so now it's very easy to get.
Yeah, I passed on, I'll get a lot of stuff through older stuff I can get from sell-offs. Like Targets and Walmarts will not be able to move their stock and it goes to auction. And I'm able to get it through various wholesale vendors. Like I have a stack of Storm Thunderbird 2-packs in front of me that I picked up this weekend, and it's great because even though they're already selling for $15 under retail price, I can still make just as much of a profit as I do on a regular figure, if not more, because they sell for so low. But someone offered me like a half a pallet of vintage collection Skiff Guard Landos for, it was only like $6.50 each, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, I still can't make money on this.
I mean, that's fair.
Like, I think we
Army build Skiff Guard Lando.
We have at our local Ollie's.
Oh yeah.
We have there. It's like every week I go there, there's another case of TVC Ray on Octu training. It's like literally there's probably 50 of them on the pegs, and then every time I go, there's another case sitting on top of the shelf full of them.
Where are you guys located at?
So we are in
Western Pennsylvania.
Yes, we are.
Okay, you're only a few hours from me, huh?
Mm-hmm.
You guys are the home of one of my favorite cons, Steel City Con.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
We haven't been able to go up before yet, but we would like.
I think I went one time as a kid because my father has always been into collecting ever since before I was born. So for me, the collecting is partially like a family tradition. Like my dad kind of got me into it, and that's where I am with it. But he took me and my cousin, I think it might have been to that con when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I remember I bought like a Power Ranger and like a Transformer or something like that. But yeah, it is a cool.
They have a huge variety of guests, which is what's cool about it.
Oh, yeah.
Not a great con just like from the collecting standpoint, because they do a lot of comics too. So the toy selection is not always great, but it is a pretty darn cool con. But it's funny you bring up Ollie's, because a lot of the time people will be like, you just bought that at Ollie's. And I'll be like, listen, do you honestly think that Ollie's is the only place that has access to this overstock that we're all buying? Like half the time, like Ollie's, sometimes they'll buy certain things thinking they hit a gold mine, but they don't. That's like, you know, the special secret advantage I got over places like that is they don't know what they're buying half the time. Hence why they have 5,000 cases of Island Rays. And I said, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, they really said, "Ooh, we hit the jackpot with this one."
They do.
It's funny because they have like the most random stuff sometimes. Because I remember I got off work and I went to Ollie's just to check to see what they had, and they had a Rebels era like Grand Inquisitor like helmet. And it's like, huh? It was like just 2 sheets of plastic that's stuck together like with some clamps or like some Velcro or something. But I was still kind of like, maybe I'll get it just to put it on the shelf. Maybe.
Ollie's bought out a lot of Toys R Us's, and so did a lot of bigger places. They bought the merchandise and sat on it. So a lot of old end of the era Toys R Us stuff is coming to light now that you're seeing in places like Ollie's or Ross. It's all stuff that was purchased at bankruptcy from Toys R Us that has just been sold as lots multiple times until it's finally getting parted out. It's very interesting how that all works. I actually much prefer the new product game because it's easier. Oh, that means someone just bought something on the store whenever you hear that little sound.
All right.
Someone just bought a Boba Fett because that Boba Fett came out today, and it's Boba Fett, so he's selling like hotcakes.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Although the one you bought is, I think it's still currently my highest selling figure I've ever sold. That George Lucas Stormtrooper.
Whoa.
Really?
Yeah. Him and the symbiote Spider-Man.
Ooh,
okay.
Those are both dope.
Yeah. But, you know, the store thing's fun. It's a lot of fun. I'm really hoping that I won't have to continue to work a job for too many more years. But I don't take any money out because every penny I get goes back into either, like right now, I have a couple of developers working on some things because I want it to be able to be the best online store for people. And that, like, for me, it's all about customer service. So I need to be able to make all the technology work really well so that if someone calls me, I'm actually free to talk to them rather than dealing with, like, I talk to other store owners and they're dealing with pen and paper and filing things. And I'm like, no, not doing it. I'll hire somebody to set up some automations for me instead. And then Big Bad Toy Store does their pile of loot feature.
Yeah.
And of course, there's no software that allows something like that to be set up. But I'm working on something, I don't want to say similar, but it's kind of similar, where it would be like more like a Prime crossed with that, where you order whatever the heck you want. It just sits here. And then on the first of each month, whatever you've ordered, I send out as part of your membership.
Okay.
So it's basically like you're going to get a shipment of toys a month. You never have to worry about shipping. You never have to worry about, man, do I got to order something else with this so I can combine shipping? You just pay your flat fee, and it works out for everybody. Because one of the things that hurts me now is my bigger customers, if they need something from another store, they'll get a couple other things that they were going to get anyway from me just because, well, I don't want to pay double shipping. So something I'm looking at as I continue to add toy lines, but it's always tough, tough. And now I just got on this Mythic Legions train with those guys, and those things are addictive.
Those things look so cool. I actually watched your video you did where you went to that con where the design team was.
Yeah.
And I've been keeping up with the Mythic Legions ever since then. And those are awesome. The detail on those figures, like the way that they look so presentable. They're awesome.
They're insane. It's absolutely insane. And it is by far the coolest, most chill, laid back community in all of like the toy nerddom, because like it gets a lot of, it's funny. One day when I really want to just make people mad, I'll make like a most toxic toy culture like by line, and like it is like the older ones that are always the worst, but they are like so chill, so laid back. You go into one of their communities, you ask a question, no one's gonna be like, "What are you, stupid?" Like you would if you go and ask a Star Wars question.
Yes.
It's just so cool. It's just a great group of people. But yeah, they have so much. They just drop toys randomly sometimes. They dropped the Krampus Christmas figure the other night, and I'm like, "Whoo, I'm in!" And of course, it sold out like really quickly.
Dang.
But like I've been able to kind of make relationships with the designers there, which they're incredible. Their skill is insanity, and their photographer who is phenomenal. But yeah, those things are nuts, absolutely nuts. It's one of those things that I was worried. Lines like that, I was worried would die after Toys R Us, because Toys R Us was known to be able to give these smaller toy makers a shot. Without them, you're not getting shelf space at Walmart or Target. So,
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I guess maybe to kind of circle to your collection really quick.
yeah.
What do your wife and kids think about that? That's kind of my question for that.
So, my wife. Let's start with that.
Okay.
I was perpetually single when I was your kid's age there, pretty much. And then I went through this phase of, if I just don't tell them, that should be good. Then I went through perpetually dating when I just put it all in storage. I'm like, wow. So it was the Star Wars stuff that was the problem. And then I got to an age where I bought my house and I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I don't even care. We'll just put it in a separate bedroom. We'll shut the door to that bedroom and whatever. Well, I met my wife working in 2009. We both worked for Panera Bread. And I hired her. And I just told her one day, and there's like a 5-year age gap, I'd say. So I was 28, she was 23. And for whatever reason, she found that attractive. And that set off immediate red flags to me. This girl's got to be nuts. So I continually like turned her down, broke up with her, you name it, until eventually she coerced me into marriage. But best decision ever. She puts up with it totally. The whole store was actually her insistence.
Hey.
So we dumped our savings into this, and I am not a fiscally risky person. So she was like, nah, I believe in you. You got a lot of people who really believe in what you do and like the message you send around the toys. I think we need to do this and just see what happens. So my kids right now, I'm the coolest dad there is. We're the only house that has a toy store in the basement. Like,
that's fact.
Yes, I hear you. My son's literally, he came down and he goes, Dad, I'm going to go hang out in the warehouse for a while. On the floor and plays his Switch, surrounded by toys.
That's awesome.
But, they love it. I mean, my son's name is Luke Skywalker, literally.
I did see that.
And, right now it's funny because they'll get toys sometimes and I don't like them buying action figures because they want to buy the adult collectible ones. Like they want to buy, and they're so expensive for kids. And I'm paying their allowance anyway. I can't afford to build a collection for both of us. And then when they want to play with me, I'm like, sure, let's play. And they're like, I'll get you. I'm like, don't bang the paint so hard. And like that's literally how it goes. Like I have one of the BMF Millennium Falcons in the other room, and he'll be playing. I'm like, watch the landing gear. We have whenever that HasLab comes in from the Razor Crest. I'm sure we're going to go do that again there. But yeah, they love it now. Like now it's funny because when they do get toys, like they bought a couple of Funko Pops the other day.
Oh, nice.
And my son cannot decide if he wants to be a mint on card person or a loose person. And he struggled with it. And I catch him like staring at the box, like thinking about it. I've even showed him how to open these things and still put them back in. So now he opens it, takes it out, and then I find it back in the box later, like it was never open. And he goes back in and out. I'm sure we'll come to a time in the not too near future where I go from cool dad to please drop me off at the corner dad.
That's part of growing up though. I mean, I kind of was the same way. Like action figures were like, especially when the Clone Wars was coming out. I had all the Clone Wars action figures, and like I remember my dad and I would play with them all the time. And then I got into like, middle school, high school age, and I kind of phased out of it completely. I did go through a phase in 10th grade where I was collecting Star Wars Legos and I like had all the sets lined up. But then my younger brother, he's like 10 years younger than me. We were playing Nerf guns one day and he knocked over a bunch of the Lego sets, and I went, yeah, that hobby's done, because I just didn't feel like putting them all back together. But
Nice.
then like I got to college and I just started getting into the collecting, and it's just been a great hobby. It's cool because, you know, a lot of people nowadays, it's like, oh, what's your thing you do? Like, what do you do outside of school and work? And nowadays, like, a lot of people don't have anything to say. You know, you sit on social media, or, you know, you watch YouTube or whatever. And so for me, like, I can say, yeah, I collect. It's a hobby. And, like, you know, I can say now, like, with these guys, we do a podcast together where we can talk about it week to week and talk about the news and, you know, stuff like that. So it's become like a thing that I can make myself more interesting with.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. One of the biggest points, one of my mentors at school, I mean, like, a lot of my friends really like to dog on me for collecting in anyway, but he's like, you know, like, we really dog on you for that. But, like, realistically, you're setting yourself up for the future, because you have a hobby and something that, like, you do on the side. Because all these other kids in their free time just sit around on Netflix. They don't do anything. They're in college to simply go through the motions. And he's like, you're already doing more than most people are gonna really do to begin with.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, like, you got to have an outlet, and it grounds you. It keeps you young, it keeps you creative, and it really does bring you out of the bad stuff. Like, social media can become such a toxic hellhole, you know, and people will, like, you can say, like, oh, well, have a great day, and people will find a way to turn that into some kind of a statement. Like, it's absolute insanity. And it's nice to have something to fall back on. And your friends who dog you will eventually one day admit to you that they're jealous of you, that they're jealous that you have the, pardon my French, the balls to be yourself. Okay. They're going to someday, they're going to tell you that. They'll be like, you know, I admire that you're able to just, like, wear your nerd flag with pride and not really care about it. And I'll tell you, there was a long time that I told nobody about my hobbies, like, at all. Nowadays, I can't wait. Like, I'm, like, trying to find ways to bring it up in conversation. And it's so hard, because I'm like, please ask me what I do for fun. I want to tell you, because I think I'm super cool now. But before, totally different.
I've kind of, like, I used to be very, like, especially, like, in elementary school, like, because Jackson's my brother, we used to get, like, bullied for liking Star Wars. But now it's like, I don't go outside of the house without wearing at least one thing Star Wars. Like, my necklace I always wear is Lego Han Solo and Carbonite, and I always have it on. So it's like, I just wear it on my sleeve now. It's always there. I like telling people about it. Lots of people still think I'm weird for it, but I've just gotten to the point where I do not care.
Don't care.
Yeah. I go out in public with a ring on my finger right here that in Arabesque says, "May the fourth be with you." And I have people ask me about that all the time. They're like, "That's such a nice ring. Like, what does it say?" And then I tell them, and then they're like, "Oh."
So, like, for a long time, I think it's dying down now, but the corporate world, like, the in thing to do is to put a motivational or inspirational leadership quote in your email signature. So I went probably 7 straight years with Yoda quotes, and I changed it to a different Yoda quote here and there. But yeah, I mean, you know, wear that stuff. Be yourself. Don't worry about what other people think.
Yeah, I mean, and you were talking about, like, the negativity on, like, social media too. I mean, I feel like with the Black Series, like, collecting community, it's gotten, like, pretty bad recently. You know, you have this really loud, I feel like it's a loud minority that's just, like, really just going in on, like, not even just the line, but, like, they'll go in on, like, the design team and, like, the PR people. It's like, and I noticed it most with the HasLab Rancor. I know it's been a big topic of conversation for a lot of people.
Here we go.
You know, we had some guys in our Discord that, you know, were hoping that it got backed, and, like, you know, the time was going down and it missed it by what, like 300 or 400.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they were really bummed out. And then, like, you just see people in these comment sections cheering that it didn't get backed. I was like, that was
weird.
Like, isn't that weird? Yeah, it's weird.
It's like, congratulations, we're never gonna get another Black Series HasLab now, and it's your fault. Woo!
So I had some pretty strong opinions on the Rancor, but I was just amazed at how, like, my opinions really came down to the presentation of it. Like, I thought, believe it or not, I actually thought that the price wasn't terrible, but I thought that the way they promoted the entire thing, the way they sold it, the timing, everything was done wrong.
Right.
You know, and I had some nice, like, you know, I've talked to the Hasbro team on both Marvel and Star Wars. They're actually very receptive to feedback. I can't believe how thick their skin is because I see the stuff people say to them. It's ridiculous. Like to the point where I'm like, can I not be associated with you?
You're right.
Because again, it's really scary. Like you can criticize, that's okay.
Right.
But you don't need to be an ass about it. You know?
Right.
And,
I did watch your. Oh, pardon me.
No, go right ahead.
Oh, I did watch your video on the Rancor specifically, and like I really do agree with a lot of the points, and I feel like you brought a very unique perspective to it as well. Obviously, understanding the price of materials and stuff, and the articulation that goes into it, and what really makes it $350 to begin with. Because yes, I understand you could back the Rancor or buy a new video game console this Christmas. You know what I mean? Like the option is really there because of the price. And I do agree with you. There was a lot of flaws with the marketing as well, with the tiers and such. And how that really could have been fixed. And then the point that I really made before on the show is that I feel like the overall failure of it was poor communication, not only really from Hasbro itself, but then from the fans, like extreme negative reaction.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad afterwards. Like I was telling people, like, listen, you don't need to be this. Like people are very angry that there's even a HasLab. How dare a multi-million to billion-dollar company crowdfund something?
Yeah,
and like people seem to think that Hasbro is sitting on piles of money somewhere, and I'm getting tired of it. But like I made a point to someone on Instagram today. Hasbro year over year over year, and you can look it up because it's a publicly traded company, has produced around the 15% profit margin. So every year it's about the same, but their prices are going up. That means that the cost of production must be going up somewhere. Now, people are arguing with me saying, well, how come NECA toys are so much cheaper? And how come all these? And they're right, they are. The answer then comes down to one thing, and it's licensing. Disney is like the mafia sometimes. They like be like, yo, we need our cut. And their cut's a big cut. Because now that I've gotten into the Mythic Legions land and I see what they produce and I see what it's costing them to produce it, now it's more that's how I'm kind of deducing how much the licensing must be. It's a lot more than I originally thought it was. So people don't think about that. And the fact that Hasbro is doing crowdfunding, it's not crowdfunding. It's a different way of approaching commerce because they have to. They have to do that if they're going to maintain that 15% margin, which they have to do if they want to keep their jobs. If not, they will just be they'll be fired. That's as simple as it is. It's not one person. It's a publicly traded company. And that's just how it is. Like they have to figure out how to make their profit creative ways. That's what a smart company does. But, we're going to criticize them every second of the way because they're not a nonprofit. And it's a very weird dichotomy because you know what would happen if they did everything people wanted and like this. So here's your Rancor, it's $150 and you don't have to pay us until after it comes out. And then in 4 years, they're the new Toy Biz, which you guys are too young to really understand. But they become the new Toy Biz and they're gone. And now you're criticizing them like they just don't know how to run a business. Like we did with Toy Biz now. Toy Biz, everyone looks back on fondly because they had such great value. That's why they went out of business. They couldn't pay it.
I think at the end of the day, too, these are the same people that will complain no matter what. Yes. Because like all these same people, with the Rancor specifically, they wanted to see Malakili and Ula as stretch goals for the Rancor. So Hasbro came out and keep in mind, like this figure is not even in the design phase yet. No. They came out and they were like, yeah, we'll add Malakili to the base Rancor. You don't even have to get it to a stretch goal. It's just here it is. And then people still complained and they were like, well, it's too late. It's too little, too late. I'm like, well, I mean, really, is it? Because if that was the only reason you weren't going to back it and now they're giving it to you.
So like, I was going to make a video about that, but I just didn't have time to do it and produce the whole thing because to me, that was such an amazing symbolic gesture.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like to go out and do that at the last minute. I thought that was huge. And I actually I didn't tell anyone, but I did back it. Well, kind of. I guess I didn't because it didn't get produced. But yeah, I thought that was great. And the fact that people were reacting to that way, I'm just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, oh, where's Ula? You're not going to get Ula. It's not happening.
We mentioned, like I said in our past episode, I'm like, you're stupid if you think that they're gonna add space strippers into the child's toy line, and it's a Disney company. It's like you must be smoking something because it's not
here's
gonna
the
happen.
thing, though. Like, let's be realistic here. I don't have a problem with it, just because. Have you seen the Marvel Legends?
Yeah,
The
right,
ladies?
right.
They are very highly sexualized, so it's not like
Mhm.
that's the issue. I don't think it's so much that. I
Mhm.
don't totally understand it. I think it's more of a Disney just is trying to. I think Disney really is just like they don't really care. They're just trying to make sure no one is outraged. People
Yeah.
were outraged over Slave Leia, so now it's like let's just do no scantily clad women from Return of the Jedi. Like I'm expecting Jabba the Hutt's next figure to have a T-shirt on. Like he can't be naked, you know. So I kind of thought that this was a perfect place for Ula because it's not for kids. It's not going to be in stores, you know. But hey, listen, clearly they also thought that. These guys aren't dumb. The marketing teams are incredibly smart, but they didn't. They couldn't do it, but they also can't say they can't do it. So they're in between a rock and a hard place, which kind of leads me to the Rancor is the wrong pick for their first HasLab. Like because of the limitations, because of what you can't make with it, the best solution would have been to not do that project.
Right.
What would you have rather seen as a HasLab? Like,
so I have multiple options. We could have gone X-Wing route. It would have been about the same price. But I don't think that would have done very well because the TIE Fighter didn't. What I would have liked would be world building diorama pieces, not like plastic vintage collection Cloud City stuff where it's looks like it's made for kids, but stuff that looks like some of the stuff that we're seeing made by third parties that you see on Big Bad Toy Store. Some of the diorama kits they're making. Imagine what Hasbro could do with the ability to use the licensing. Company a few years ago came out with Space Walls. You ever see them? They were scale. They're like $200 for a wall and a floor. And they did not have to pay a license. Imagine what Hasbro could produce. They could have came out with like a whole Death Star kit where you can build a trash compactor, a conference room, a hallway, a hangar. They could have done the same thing with the Falcon. You don't get a Falcon. A Falcon will be the size of a mattress. But you could have had a cockpit. You could have had a space chess table. You could have done all sorts of things. But Black Series is honestly probably not the best place for HasLab.
I definitely see what you mean.
I remember I was constantly joking around saying I wish they would do a HasLab Bad Batch shuttle just because it'd be the size of a living room, and I thought that'd be funny.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that for the vintage collection.
I would buy that. Like hands down.
Probably going to happen, you know. But they're not going to make ships anymore if they don't do them on HasLab because the stores don't want them on the shelves. It takes up too much real estate for a small profit margin.
I agree.
Yeah, I felt bad that it didn't get backed. And like I would have liked to have seen it like become a thing. But at the same time, like I just saw a lot of arguments where people would say like they feel like Hasbro never listens. And like one with the Malakili thing, that was literally like we were talking about. That was last minute. They did not have to do that. And also, like, I remember when I started collecting the Black Series in 2019, the sentiment was very much overwhelmingly like, we want to see more Clone Wars figures. We want to see more of characters from like the older video games. We want to see more of this. We want to see more of that. And if you look at the line now, there are tons of Clone Wars figures. Like the Clone Wars, like Galaxy Art packaging is one of the biggest in the line. It's what that and the Mandalorian have the two biggest so far, like I think, right? And so people like
want to complain is really what it comes down to.
Really.
Exactly.
Like they're going to complain and they'll be like they'll say things like Hasbro doesn't care. They just want to they don't understand their business is going to fail because all they do is make Boba Fett and clones. And I'll say, you realize that that's because they sell. Like I got into like a little spat with someone the other day about it. I'm like, no, man, we need more aliens. They would sell. I'm like, oh, really? Tell that to the little guy from The Mandalorian who's sitting on shelves everywhere. The Ugnaught.
Quill,
right?
Quill, yeah. So, no, they don't. It's that simple. Like, the newest wave, the Black Series Wave 6 is what it technically is. The one with Fennec Shade and Bill Burr.
Yeah.
The two lowest selling figures are the aliens.
Exactly.
Like for me personally, well, that's a lie. The lowest selling is Princess Leia because she's the
Yeah, I
90th
figured.
Princess Leia. But then it's Ponda Baba and Dr. Evazan, or whatever the hell his name is. I stuck at names. But yeah, like they
You got it
don't.
right. You got it right.
Did I? Yeah, they don't sell, and that's just what it is.
And that's because the other part of it too is like with the Black Series, I see a lot of, at least with the people that we interact with in our little community, a lot of people troop build, and a lot of people get figures that they can customize or they can do different things to. And when you have an alien that's a very specific species, and it's like the only one in Star Wars that's like that, you really can't customize or do too much with it. Like, at least that's one of the things with Marvel Legends is like they can do a lot of reuse because a lot of the characters are from comic books, so they have the same general design. With Star Wars, if you do like a unique alien, you have to put a lot of original sculpting into it and a lot of original paint apps, and you can never reuse that a lot of the times. Whereas with Marvel Legends, you can have tons and tons of figures that just have different paint apps or maybe a different accessory on top, and you can save tons of money by not having to make a new mold.
And they don't have endless source material either.
Right.
It's not like Marvel. So I've talked to the Marvel team quite a bunch between personal interviews and social media. To say that none of these guys listen to the fans is insanity. That's all they do. Their ears to the grindstone on all of this. The Star Wars team is a little bit more, I guess, they're not as obvious with it, but like, because the Marvel team will just make jokes about it on their like live streams. They'll be like, hey, here's your double jointed female elbows you're always complaining about. And at first, when I started really watching and pay attention to the live streams, I'm like, man, way to take a shot at your fans. But then I started to take a look into what these people say. If you think that like Facebook's toxic, check out a Pulse live streams chat. The live chat. It's so bad.
We live stream a lot of Pulse stuff and we don't even look at the chat.
Yeah, we don't bother.
Nope.
No.
Too bad.
No, like some of the toy YouTubers, like we'll all start like PMing each other. Like, why do we have to identify with these people? Like the stuff they're saying, and they're just nasty.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
And like, if you think the Star Wars ones are bad, I'm of the impression right now G.I. Joe seems to be the worst group.
Really?
They're the angriest ones.
Yeah.
They're very angry.
Well, there was the whole, I know there was a big debacle right out the gate with Major Blood coming out.
There was, again, like they blame Hasbro, but it goes like, you're not blaming the problem here. The problem is twofold. One, it's not meant to all come out the same day. It's not a video game.
Yeah.
So just because you can't find it the day you want it doesn't mean it's a problem.
Right.
But really, it came down to Target. And they learned their lesson and they got it fixed. But people were so freaking out that they're paying stupid numbers for it. You know, people paid for the newest Bat and Alley Viper on Halloween. I posted 2 pictures of sold auctions for $500 for each a figure. Yep.
What?
Someone paid $500 for each one to get it now versus $23 to get it in a couple of months.
Oh my!
That's worse
God.
than Star Wars.
Yep.
That is
like, to give you an idea. So I'm selling cases of. You can get an army builder pack, a full case of either one of the army builders. So I think it's like $180. No, it's less than that. It's like $140. Think about that. You could have built an army of like 20 of these things, but no, you have one of each instead. No, you could have built like 40 of each. Like, it's insanity. But I just don't get it. Like, I get it for some of the toy YouTubers because their whole business, their YouTube strategy is we want to be the first to review it.
Yeah.
But if you just need to be the first to have it for the hell of it, and it's not a business strategy, you might need help.
You're dumb.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's like it's nuts. And you know what? That makes me feel better because when I started collecting, these guys know I was notorious. I'd be like, oh, I just bought a figure on eBay or Mercari and I paid this much for it. And they would go, dude, that's like 4 times more than it's worth. And I'd go, oh, really? Well, that sucks. But that makes me feel a lot better knowing that I would never spend $500. I just, wow.
It's the FOMO factor, man. I did it a couple of times back in the early 2000s because I would get paranoid. Like when the preview figures for episode 2 came out, I had to get them. And I'm like, what if I don't find them? And I found them in a collectible store for $25 a piece. and they were $5 back then, and I paid it.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Only one time did I ever pay up for a figure. It was a Power of the Jedi Expanded Universe Darth Maul. And I paid $18 for it, where it was usually $7. And I never saw it in a store ever. And this is back when I was hitting probably 5 stores a day. So only ones that it ever matter. And I only paid an extra $11. But yeah, it's scary. People go nuts. And some people's whole life is just reselling this stuff. And I totally don't understand that, because there's just not enough money to be made in doing it for it to be worth being condemned by the rest of the fans. So I don't get it.
That's a whole nother thing. And that's what I will say about the fan channels again. I remember when I think it was the Archive 501st clone came out. You were selling them by the case on your website, which I thought was really cool, because if you go to like Walmart, and it was $8 a case, right? Or 6?
6 for the no, it's 8. It's 8.
Yeah, 8 a case. For me to get 8 in the wild, I would have to hit 4 different Walmarts, for example, and there would have to be 2 at each Walmart for me to get 8. So like that's an advantage again to like the fan channels. And the other thing, it's going to be shipped properly. It's not going to be a situation where like the figures come in and the card back is folded in half, or I think it's a huge advantage.
It is. It definitely is. It's crazy. And some people were actually mad at me for that. They're like, this is why there's not enough to go around.
What?
And I'm like, you realize that I can order up to 800 cases of these per transaction. I can go back and do another transaction for another 800 if I want to tomorrow. Like, it's not an issue of that. It's just an issue of getting them. Like that wave specifically, for God knows what reason, has been pushed back insanely. Like that's now saying, I haven't seen it anywhere. I've seen a couple of them ship out of some of the stores, like literally a couple of orders, but they're now saying next summer on that.
Yeah. I did see that on Entertainment Earth. It's August of 2022.
Yeah.
Full season this summer.
But
I know.
It's hard to tell how much of that's true, because I had a distributor send me an email for the Marvel Legend Ursa Major Wave telling me, hey, this isn't coming until April of 2022. This was in October. And then a week later it showed up. I'm like, so I'm always afraid now to change dates on things, because people get so paranoid that I'm going to just cancel it on them, when in reality, it's coming. There's occasionally things that are at risk of cancellation. And when that happens, like the Black Series Captain Rex, I took him off the store because I heard rumors that he might get canceled. Now that didn't happen. Looks like everything's good there. But, me, Dorkside, BBTS, Entertainment Earth, we all took them down just to be responsible. We don't want to oversell on something that we're not going to get at all. But it's not like, so we all are smart in that we don't just set our pre-orders up blindly. We set them up based off of what we order. So they turn off at a certain point. Not many people know this, but Amazon, Walmart, Walmart does to a certain extent. They don't actually set an allocation. They just order a whole bunch of stuff, sell everything they can, and if they run out, they just cancel your order. They don't even think about it.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, they don't Amazon's notorious for it.
Yeah.
So that's why never pre-order from Amazon. Only get in stock from them unless it's an exclusive.
I was seeing that that Bad Batch 4-pack of figures with like the Rex and Hauser in it were getting canceled by Amazon in Canada. So some people are probably waking up to that email and just being like about it.
That's crazy. That will it sucks. And like the shipping thing is just a nightmare. Like knowing when and where things are, and now they're just assigning dates so far in the future to prevent people from getting mad. Like the Boba Fett that came out today, they're saying fall of 2022. I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think it'll be out before then, but I think they're just like, let's just hedge our bets. Screw it.
That's true.
Yeah, but I think that people are very quick to just get outraged about stuff. Yeah. And so, I know that there were people that were upset about the Boba Fett being so far off, and I feel like, again, there's just no happy medium with a lot of people. They're going to be mad if it's too soon. They're going to be mad if it's too far off. There's always people going to be complaining. And I think we got on our last podcast episode, we got pretty like heated about that topic.
Yes.
And it got to the point where I think it was either me or Jacob was just like, honestly, do us all a favor and just stop collecting. Save some more product for the rest of us, because if it makes you that upset, then just stop.
I really don't get it. Like today, the big thing is the price of that new Boba Fett. Everyone's very angry about how expensive he is. And again, I get it. He is expensive. He isn't. They are making more on that than they all are on other figures. But again, it's all a balancing act. If they were to lower that, they'd probably have to raise the price of their general figures then to make up for it, to get to their margin. And people aren't looking at it rationally. They're looking at it emotionally. And that's what drives me nuts. I'm like, take your emotion out of this. Just chill out. Like, this is not Scrooge McDuck up in Rhode Island Hasbro headquarters jumping into a pool of money. Take a look at what they do for charities and stuff. Like, they're not, like, chill. Stuff's going up. Prices are expensive. Licensing fees are expensive. Toys are expensive. Good Lord. NECA has raised their price on me like 7 times in the last 4 months since I've been with them.
Wow.
Like, they are one of the best things to sell because of the fact that they are pretty darn cheap, but they have gone up in wholesale about $5 a figure since July.
Wow.
Dang.
So like the days of the $30 NECAs are done.
I know Disney just put out a special today on their Disney Insider show for Disney Plus. I don't know if you got to see that yet, but it was talking about the design process of making the Black Series figures, which was a little bit interesting. They specifically showed off Fennec Shand and Boba Fett just to hype up the show a little bit more. But they were talking about how, like, obviously, like, you start from, you get the reference images to they basically resin cast make figures and whatnot. And then they have to hand paint them, do all the detail, like, so intricately. And then they were explaining that once the product is finished, that you have to send it to Lucasfilm so they can approve it. And then if only then it is approved, then it has to go back to Hasbro, which has to go to China then to be discussed about making multiple prototypes to start the design. So, I mean, I feel like, yes, for how many figures that people in the Black Series line are going to complain look bad, like some of the mispaints on clones, misarmors, like with Imperial Crosshair and the Bad Batch and whatnot. For how much there is of that,
Hear complaints on that one.
Oh, really? The Imperial Crosshair?
Yeah.
Yeah, people were complaining about like the shoulder pads not being accurate, the classic.
I think it looks awesome.
They were whining.
18 months is the lead time from concept to shelf.
Exactly.
And that was before the pandemic.
Yeah, so I thought that was very interesting, really, to see more of the process. But then I feel like all these collectors need to watch that to honestly understand as well that, again, I feel like it brings it back to your point that the Star Wars licensing is so expensive and exclusive that it creates so many problems in the line of figures, because if you have to send it to them so they can intricately look at everything to make sure it's right, and then like I could imagine there's probably been a figure or two that they really thought was good, and then Lucasfilm was like, no, you need to redo this.
I'm sure that there's things where it's like, hey, listen, we can't tell you why, but don't make this. Like, I'm sure that kind of stuff happens too. Although in my head, I imagine that when they send it to Lucasfilm, it just gets forwarded to George, and he's like sitting in a room. He goes, "This isn't Jar Jar. Get rid of it."
That would be funny.
So I have a couple questions, not like action figure related, just kind of general Star Wars stuff. So I do want to hear. Actually, I'll just kind of ask them one at a time. First of all, what's your favorite movie?
Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi.
Whoa.
Okay, nice.
It's a good one.
No shame though.
Why Return of the Jedi?
I love a good redemption story arc, and first time I saw it, I did not see it coming.
Oh,
so it wasn't. Looking back on it now, it's kind of telegraphed. Like, Luke, I'm going to make you turn back. No, you're not. Yes, I am. No, you're not. And now looking back on it, it's like, oh, how did I miss it? But the first time I saw it, like the idea of Vader saving his son, sacrificing himself, taking the helmet off, seeing the man that was destroyed underneath, and he's not a monster. The storyline really got me. Now later on, I'm like, I had to, you know, as I watched it for the 100th time, it was like, can this still be my favorite with all this amount of Ewoks? Yeah, I guess it can.
That's awesome. So I have another question. So the three of us are huge fans of Star Wars Visions, which was, the Star Wars anime project that came out. What are your thoughts on that? It's actually on my hoodie right now.
Okay.
Shout out to Jacob and Jackson. They got me this hoodie. But
true story. Haven't watched an episode yet.
We recommend it. We recommend
will.
it.
Especially if you like anime. If you like anime, this is fantastic.
So I don't not like anime, but it's just something I never got into. So there's gonna be the, I don't know how I feel about this animation style moment, but I love the idea of what if style stories. So there was a comic book line done by Dark Horse in the late 90s, and it was called Infinities, and it was the same idea where they took a single moment in the Star Wars trilogy and changed it. So, like, what if Luke didn't blow up the Death Star? What if Luke died in the Wampa Cave? And they would run out the entire trilogy. Like one of them where Luke dies in the Wampa Cave, Return of the Jedi ends with Yoda invading a Death Star and crashing it onto Coruscant to crush the Emperor. Like, it was just insanity. Like, go check those out. They're on the Marvel app. They're insane. But I love those kind of stories.
So what did you think then about the announcement that Dark Horse is coming back to Star Wars?
I like it because Dark Horse, I really love Dark Horse Star Wars because that's what got me in the comics. I read those for years before I read anything else. Marvel and DC even, they've gotten somewhat stale lately. And it's more that I've noticed that they're stale lately. Like they've always been comic books has always been a model the political culture type of thing, but it's never felt so in your face. So divisive is probably the word. So us versus them. So let's split people in half like it does now. And it definitely feels forced with some stories, so whereas with Dark Horse, they're very much like, let's just tell the story and go from there. Like they've gotten really, they did some really creative stuff. Like they did the Infinities thing. They did another one where it was basically like James Bond, but as an Imperial agent. That was like 10 years ago. It was a Imperial secret agent, and it was like all the different stuff he did.
That's sick.
That's so neat.
See, I read the one, it was like about Obi-Wan. I think it was called Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was the one where they go to this planet. I don't know if it was like a moon of Naboo, but there was like the sickness that was killing all the Gungans, and then like Dirge shows up, and him and Obi-Wan fight back and forth, and they got these like weird hives on their bodies. It was really, really like grotesque. But like I remember when I was like 7 reading it, it was so good.
So I was really big into all of the Star Wars novels for a really long, long time. And so for me, like I really enjoy Star Wars comics. The stuff that came out from Marvel in the last few years, though, has been for Star Wars absolutely incredible. It started to get a little stale, though, is the problem. More so the stories of Han and Leia. Like there's only so much you can do with Han and Leia in between A New Hope and Empire to make it interesting. Now, when they start telling Vader stories and telling stories about what's going on with him and Palpatine in between, I'm like hooked, like all in. I want to see this stuff.
Those are always cool. I just wanted to like touch on because you mentioned like how Marvel comics are kind of like politicized. Me and Jackson, like I remember we went to this place. It was called like Angie's Attic. It was like it doesn't exist anymore, but it was like an antique store. And I remember in the corner one time we found like a box of comics, and one of the ones it was like Captain America and the War on Drugs, and it was like it was basically a whole publicity thing of don't do drugs. Drugs are bad, and like the bad guys were basically the human embodiments of heroin and weed. It was really funny. So it's like reading those then, I was just like, okay, this is a good comic. I'm looking at it now. I'm like, well, this is a very big timepiece.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like I started a personal project about a year ago where I'm going back and reading everything from Marvel from 1998 forward. And when I say everything, I don't mean like all the little books. I mean all the mainline books. Interesting because you can see parts of the political discourse in there, but it's not incredibly overt.
Okay.
Right. So like 2001-ish, or like 9/11 time, you can see there's a lot of nationalism in there. There's a lot of talking about American pride. And then as we get in toward the mid 2000s, there's a lot of like privacy, Patriot Act stuff. But it's also, it's not like preachy, you know.
Right.
You look back, Marvel has always been very much a political thing, but usually it's in ways to unite people, not divide. X-Men are a great example. X-Men was an allegory for racism. So I once read that, even though he said it wasn't true, but people think that Stan Lee, that Charles Xavier is supposed to be Martin Luther King, and Magneto's Malcolm X, the two different ways of going about civil rights. I don't know if that was an intention, but it certainly does parallel it. But you look at the stories, the X-Men are always leading through compassion, love, kindness, even of people who don't understand them, and trying to bring a people together. Whereas now it seems like the whole political discourse is to tear apart in the comics too. And that's where it gets kind of crappy. Like, I don't mind having some politics on my comics. Yeah, let's see Captain America punch Hitler. I'm fine with that. It's when we start getting into that other stuff, you know, when we start getting into the point where I'm like, oh, I can see what you're doing to me, what you're trying to tell me right now. I get it. Congratulations. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see. But I think that's just where we are as a country right now. Everything is overly politicized, and it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. That's one of the reasons that I like, one of my favorite things to do is watch South Park, because it is the most, like, if you want an example of someone that can do political commentary but be fair, literally like balanced across the way, it's South Park. They'll make fun of the left, they'll make fun of the right, they'll make fun of the middle, they'll make fun of everybody. It's great. I love it.
It is funny. I never watched South Park in my life until this year. I had an hour gap between one of my classes, so me and my roommate would turn it on and just watch it. And it was just so incredibly funny. I would totally recommend it. Not for our children audience.
No, kids do not watch it. That came out when I was in 8th grade, and I still believe it's going strong. I think that for people who are like super hardcore movie fans like me, they'll take, like, it'll probably go over most people's heads, but they'll add in movie storylines into their stories that most people don't see. I was watching one the other night where they closed down KFC, and the KFCs became medicinal marijuana clinics. And Cartman was having a hard time getting off the KFC, and he went to like a methadone clinic, and they had little shots of KFC gravy. And they ended up doing an entire spoof of how Cartman was black marketing Kentucky Fried Chicken into Colorado, but they did it to the entire theme of Scarface. Like, they mirrored scenes. And I'm like, I wonder how many people realize that what they're doing here. Like, there's a scene in Scarface where he goes to Bolivia to secure like heroin distribution. Well, in South Park, they do the exact same music, the exact same font, and instead of saying Bolivia, it says Kentucky. And it's Cartman going to find the colonel. It's fantastic. They do that kind of stuff all the time, and I live for it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like shows that are clever, you know, because as an audience member, and kind of like you were saying with the comics, everything is very spoon fed to you right now.
Damn,
like, you know,
sorry.
if there's like if there's like a message that they want, they just go, hey, here's the message right here. Here it is. But like, I like when shows and movies, I mean, just look at like movies like V for Vendetta and like things like that. That's a lot of it is so intellectual, and a lot of it is so, I mean, the messaging is there very clearly, but like they do it in such interesting ways that you can tell someone really sat down and thought this out instead of just going, this is the message I want to get, hurry up and put out a story on it.
Yep. Like, what do we do? How do we demonize this person? Oh, just compare him to Hitler. Got it.
Right.
That's a formula now.
That was something I really liked about one of the newer Marvel shows for WandaVision. It was how creative it was. Just because like the whole beginning of it, you don't know that, spoilers for WandaVision if anybody hasn't seen it, but you don't know that the whole world was created by Wander. There's just like little subtle hints to let you know that something isn't right.
Yeah.
And that's why I loved it so much, because it made it interesting. It wasn't just like it overtly let you know what was going on. You knew something was wrong, but you never knew what. So you just still kind of went along with the world until it all fell apart. So that was what I really liked about that show.
That was
just how
so
creative it
different. That was people. A lot of people disagree with me, but that is my absolute favorite of the Marvel shows.
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah,
I
not
think
even
Loki
close.
was the best in my opinion, but
That was
like Loki.
actually Loki's my
Mm-hmm.
least.
No kidding.
No.
No kidding.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I'm not a huge fan of timeline jumping stories to begin with.
That was the thing I
That's
really
fair
liked
enough.
about it. So
Yeah, like it's not really my thing. And I felt like it really took the sales out of his death scene that was so emotional and so heartfelt. And I'm like, I don't really feel this now. And yeah, I just wasn't like it was pretty obvious where they were going with it, with the Kang thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know, there was just something about it I didn't love.
Mhm.
Cap and the Winter Soldier I liked, but I felt like it was too drawn out. Like I felt like they could have got it done in 4 episodes.
I could agree with that.
You know, I really enjoyed What If, but I think I still have a couple episodes to watch.
Mhm.
But again, that's just the style I like, and so far I love Hawkeye. Like
Mhm.
that's
Oh,
like
It's been so. I haven't seen the latest episode,
Me
but
neither.
that
Neither
show
have I.
is so much fun.
I haven't seen the latest episode either. I forgot it was Wednesday. Finals week has me messed up.
oh, it's
woke up
I
for
haven't seen this one yet either. I haven't even read the spoilers yet, which is odd for me. But I'm expecting like we're gonna see like I think we're gonna see some big time surprises in this. Some of them are obvious. Did you guys see
Mhm.
last week's with
Yes.
Echo Maya?
Mhm.
Yes, I
Yes.
did.
You
We
hear the
did-
laugh?
Yes.
Mhm.
I watched like the Screen Rant videos, and he does a good job of pointing that
Yeah.
stuff out.
Mhm.
Because I'm not as big into Marvel. It's actually
What-
funny. Like in
Mhm.
high
What-
school, I was kind of how I am with Star Wars now with Marvel. I was so into it. I knew everything about it, and then I drifted away from Marvel and got more into Star Wars. So now
Mhm.
I'm like more of like a casual like MCU fan more than I
Yeah.
am like a Marvel fan.
Mhm.
So I have to watch like the Screen Rant videos. It's not like Star Wars where I'm like, yep, there's that thing.
I did it backwards. I started off more Star Wars, but after the sequels, I was like, now what?
Yeah.
The sequels killed me. Honestly, like I'm not a sequel hater. I actually enjoyed The Force Awakens, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed parts of The Last Jedi, but Return of Skywalker was some of the worst crap I've ever seen. Like beginning to end, I don't find many redeeming parts of it.
I thought though that's like my third favorite on my list.
See, we're
Oh.
all different. All three of us are different about it because
Yes.
I like The Last Jedi most out of the three. He likes you guys both like The Rise of
I like
Skywalker
The
most.
Rise of
And like
Skywalker a
the
lot.
general consensus with The Force Awakens, I feel like from most of the
It's a good
fandom
movie.
is that it's just a good movie.
It's fun. It's
Yeah.
annoying in that they retell the same story. The Last Jedi, my problem is the entire
Canceled
the entire casino sequence. I'm like, why is this in here?
There
Like,
are
this
some
doesn't
times where I'll watch that movie and because I mean, it's my third favorite Star Wars movie actually,
Really?
mainly because of like I won't get into it, but basically, long story short, the portrayal of Luke, I like him as a fallible hero in that movie, and I'm looking at it just from that movie, not
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker, whatever. So, but there are times where I'll watch that movie and we'll get to the Canto Bite sequence, and I'll go, fast forward. I'll just skip until it's
Fast forward
over.
through Croatia.
Fast forward through. There it is.
No, I have watched the final battle so many times. Like that hit home to me in a lot of ways. Like Rise of Skywalker, I hated the Emperor coming back. I felt like it kind of ruined like Return of the Jedi. The whole point is Anakin finally fulfills the prophecy,
Mhm.
Right.
but then he doesn't. So much is never explained. I hated Snoke dying the way he did. I hated the fact that nothing else was really. I just hated it. I hated all parts of it. Like I wanted them to tie in other things. I wanted Snoke to be Darth Plagueis, but no, we couldn't go that route.
Mhm.
No.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of things in that movie that it's like I wish it happened, but the reason why I like it so much it was because it was the combination of the Mandalorian coming out and then that, and I feel like because Kylo Ren was like, he's like one of my favorite characters, hands down. So seeing him be redeemed into Ben Solo is like one of the main reasons why I like the movie so much. So the combination of the Mandalorian and that movie is what started this whole collection and everything. It started right after Rise of Skywalker. So it's like, it's one of the reasons why it's high on my list is because it was kind of the catalyst that's like really accelerated all this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I also don't. I felt like of all people, I didn't want to see Ben Solo redeemed. Like he felt like he was too far gone for me, and that was like the personal thing of like, you killed your father, you suck. You know, I enjoyed the fact that Han took it the way he did. A lot of people were like, man, what a crappy way to get rid of Han. I thought that was perfect. Like that is like, if you're a father, you understand that's the hero's death. If you can die to save your kid or to potentially save your kid, that's the way you do it. That's like the perfect way to go.
You know, I will say in the Rise of Skywalker, because my father is the same way that you are about it. He is just not a fan of the sequels. And ever since we started this podcast, he has tried on multiple occasions to like, oh, you guys brought up some good points about them that I didn't think about. Let me try to like rewatch them. And he just, every time he goes, I just can't watch the Rise of Skywalker. But like, there's one scene that like, he and I always talk about, and it's the scene where they're on, it's called Kef Bur is the planet, right? And it's where Kylo, he feels Leia die, and he turns around and sees Han Solo, and they have that exchange. And like that, especially because, you know, my relationship with my father, that's a very powerful scene because the way my father parents is, you know, I'll let you fall on your face, but like, I'll be there to pick you up. Because that's how you learn is by failing on your own and then, you know, having the support system to help you get up. So I think that scene is really impactful for like my relationship with my dad. And so, you know, we talk about that, but yeah.
I did like that. I like that whole dynamic. I didn't like the fact that Han and Leia weren't together at the beginning of Force Awakens. Like to me, that felt off. That felt like that was unbreakable. Like I had no problem with Ben being the villain, but that felt off. There was just so many things that felt off, you know. Now I look back, so now it's weird because like I grew up on the prequels. That's my age, and as much as I trashed them at the time, now I really appreciate them. So I'm working on a video for the 20th anniversary of Attack of the Clones that I can't believe we're coming up on.
I know.
And it's weird. Like I've now cut like Attack of the Clones before the sequels was always by far my most hated movie of the trilogies. Now I'm like, you know, if we just take out all the scenes on Naboo, this is pretty damn good.
If we take out,
But
like,
yeah,
I mean, that's the most memed movie at this point. Like you, with the Anakin Padme thing,
the pair,
Their scene, just
I don't like sand. Cold, itchy.
We have
kids everywhere.
We have another guest that we had on the show. His name is Chosen One, a Star Wars podcast.
Yes.
And he tagged us in this video, and I can't unsee it or unhear it of how they did the sound effect for Anakin and Padme's kiss before they go into the arena. And it's like just two people kissing their hands and then going, that didn't sound right. Let's go back again and do it again. And I sat there just,
that's not right.
All the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up, and I was like, I can't watch. So now whenever I watch that scene, I'm like, I can't watch it without laughing. Because
there's a couple really funny older YouTube videos that people put together. One is where this guy went on a like hour-long rampage about why Episode 1's the worst movie ever made. And he does it like in a persona of a drunken, creepy person with the FBI raiding his house in the end. And he's like, I haven't been this disappointed in a movie since my son hung himself in a gas station bathroom. Like, it was just so over the top funny. But like, he made so many good points. He's like, describe Qui-Gon Jinn's character to me. I don't know. Is he drunk? Maybe he likes gin. Maybe that's why they call him Qui-Gon Jinn. Like, it was so funny. But then there was the other one where they actually had like animated George Lucas interviews. And like, they'd be like, George, tell us about Jar Jar. Well, Jar Jar's my favorite character. And people say, there's too much Jar Jar, but Star Wars is for me, not for them. So if you tell me to paint my house blue, I'll paint it Jar Jar. And then they had another one where he's like, and then I knew that we needed an older Anakin, so I called Hayden. And I said, Hayden, and he come play Anakin. And then they have like Hayden Christensen as like a barely mentally like functioning person. He's like, George, why me? So I can. It was just so crazy, and yeah, it's crazy. I think the thing that summed it up for me at the end, like I felt like there was when I was watching Rise of Skywalker, so it was my son's first ever movie in the theater.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, and like usually I am very positive coming out of movies. This is the first movie I ever saw that I didn't have to talk myself back out of. Like usually I'm like, okay, maybe it wasn't as good as I thought. That one, I literally said at the end as the credits come up, you have got to be kidding me. That was it? Like the thing that officially got the groan for me is like they had to make sure they got every piece of inclusion in at the end. Like we even got the ladies kissing. I'm like, why? Like, did you just feel you had to do that? I don't have a problem with it, but why? Like, how does that part of the story? Oh, we need to put it in. Like, why do we need to see? There was just so much
Right.
of it. And it was funny though. After The Force Awakens, they needed something that South Park again. They were like, okay, everyone wants to kneel for a national anthem. We need a new national anthem. We can only go to one person. We got to go to JJ. So they go to JJ Abrams to make a new national anthem. And he comes out, and the new national anthem is the same exact song, but it starts with, please stand or sit or kneel or lie down for the national anthem. So nobody can protest it. And then people are like, by God, he's done it. It's so familiar, yet different.
I'm gonna have to find that episode.
Yeah,
I've never
it's
seen
great.
that one. And that's, I think with I don't know where I'm trying to go with this. I think with the newer movies, I think that I'm very appreciative of like new ideas and, bringing different concepts into Star Wars and stuff. But I feel like there's a difference between doing it tastefully and doing it just to do it.
Yep.
And I think a big thing that I like so much about shows like The Mandalorian and, The Bad Batch and all this new stuff coming out is like, for example, look at the season 2 finale of Mando.
Mhm.
You have a scene where it's Bo-Katan, Koska Reeves, and Fennec Shand going through this light cruiser, just wreaking havoc, and Cara Dune, like the four of them.
Yeah.
And like it took me till like 5 minutes into the sequence to realize, oh, holy crap, this is a sequence of all female characters just kicking ass.
Bingo.
But it didn't need to be shoved down my throat. Whereas juxtaposed, you have in Endgame,
I was just thinking
where
that.
you have it.
Yeah.
It's just, I remember sitting in the theater going, oh, I see what they're doing here. That's what I meant earlier about like doing it in a clever way.
Yeah.
You're showing these characters, they're not badass just because they're women. They're badass because they have actual depth of character,
You have to
and you
actually
want to
build the character.
Yes.
Like Cara Dune, forget about Gina Carano for a second, but Cara Dune, the character, contrast her with Rey.
Yeah.
Right? One of them people love. One of them people don't love. Rey has no character. What is her character? I'm really good at things. I just figured out how to become a Jedi Master out of nowhere. Like she has no character. Whereas Cara Dune, you see it built over episodes, her anger and her like aggression towards the Empire. And you really start same exact thing with Bo-Katan, same exact thing with Koska Reeves, who had like 4 lines, and then it's like, so what was the point of Rey? Was the point of Rey that you just felt like you had to have a female lead so bad that you felt like you didn't even need to come up with a whole good story for her? Like, and then they had like the perfect story in Finn. I thought Finn was going to be the star of the trilogy.
Yep.
Right? Like, I thought he could have had the best arc, but then he got relegated to like secondary character. And I'm like, what the hell just happened?
That was a whole thing. I mean, I know we've brought it up. The Finn thing was because of China, and they didn't want to see I didn't know black man as they didn't want. They told Disney, we won't show the Star Wars movies in our theaters if you make a black man the main character of the movies. So Disney sidelined him because
that's disappointing. That's really disappointing to hear, because screw you, China. We're going to do it anyway, you know?
Well, and that's what Jacob, you
Yeah.
brought up. What is the thing about Eternals that
Yeah.
happened?
Eternals got canceled in China because
in Saudi Arabia.
because some of the main protagonists were black and gay, and they were like, we're not having that. And Disney said, screw you, we're making the movie and we're going to play it, which it's like, I haven't seen Eternals. I'm probably not going to see it till it's on Disney Plus just because I wasn't that interested in it. But I applaud Disney for going against the grain and being like, this isn't going to make us the most money, but we're going to do it because it's what we want to do creatively.
Well, see, I don't know though. How much of that is? I think I have zero faith in Disney, as you're about to tell. I think they wouldn't if this was reversed and it was China telling them that, they would not have done it anyway, in my opinion, because China represents a lot more money than Saudi Arabia.
Right.
You know, Saudi Arabia, they can be like, hey, look what we did. Yeah, look at us. And people are going to be like, yeah, good job, Disney. And they'll have lost so little, they'll actually have a net gain out of it. I'll tell you, I'm a old school kind of closeted wrestling geek. I don't talk about it too much, but it really died for me when they went to Saudi Arabia. Like they took the dirty money. They went over there. The women can't wrestle. Finally, they're like, look at us, how progressive we are. The women are wrestling. They have to wear like baggy t-shirts. And I'm like, yeah, we just stepped back many years.
It's a shame. It's a shame. And I feel like too, like it's because I know John Boyega came out and like did like a whole interview like after the movies came out and like explained like, yeah, this is what happened. And they straight up told me like, this is what happened. And it's such a shame, but at the same time, kind of like back to like the other point is like, you have all these shows like The Mandalorian and you have these shows. I know some people call it like the Filoni verse.
I love the Filoni verse, not gonna lie.
It's kind of like you've got this whole like almost new era of Star Wars, and it's set between the original trilogy and the sequels. And you know, we saw what Filoni did with the Clone Wars and the prequels. He fleshed out the prequels. He strengthened the weaker points of the prequels with the Clone Wars. And so I feel like, and we've already seen signs pointing to this, the end goal is to strengthen the sequels and kind of strengthen the ties between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy while also making a badass fight. And
I've heard that, and I think it's gonna be very divisive because I've heard a lot of theories of, well, we're just gonna completely go back on this whole flawed Luke character, and it's really that Luke is being this way because he's protecting and hiding Grogu, and that's why. And that's why, because like think about the contradiction of Luke at the end of the second season of The Mandalorian to where he was in The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot happened between then and there. So
24 years, I think it is exactly.
Yeah, so I think the Grogu story in the different is like that's a huge question. Like, what happened here?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think Grogu's in episode 2 now. It's pretty funny.
Really?
I'm working with a producer now, and he sent me a picture. He goes, "Hey, look at this picture I found in episode 2, and you can see Grogu in the background right before Anakin kills the younglings." And I'm like, I don't think that's right. So I had to go back and watch a scene on Disney Plus, and I'm sending him like pictures off my phone. I'm like, bro, no, someone edited that in there. He's just edited it in. That's just a window.
I was gonna say, because isn't by the time the Mandalorian is, Grogu's 40?
50.
Grogu's 50 in the
okay.
Mandalorian.
So he would have been like 10. So he would have been an infant.
Still
Probably. I don't know what he would have been, like a frog or something.
Probably.
I do worry about the future of the Mandalorian, though, without him. Like, where does it go?
Really? Because I'm excited about it, actually, like me personally.
Mm.
Because now you have this whole storyline with, this was our last episode. We talked about, you now have Din Djarin, who is now the reluctant leader. He is stuck with the Darksaber. And now I hope we go into this whole storyline on Mandalore and see what happens with that.
Grogu brought in so many new fans, specifically women. Like there are so many women who wouldn't touch Star Wars. Then they saw how cute this was and they got curious. And then they started watching and like, oh, this is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like my brother's wife's a perfect example. Their entire house is Baby Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
And she never saw a Star Wars show before that. but she fell in love with the character, and now she's like all learning Star Wars because of it. And I think anything that brings in people who are new to it is good, as long as it's not changing the entire core product. So I thought that was really cool. I'm nervous, but I am optimistic. I'm really curious to see what happens with Book of Boba Fett. I'm very, very curious.
Dude, did you see the new trailer that came out today?
I did. Like, I'm hoping that this is gonna. Unfortunately, it's on Disney Plus. I was hoping it would be more like a violent show. Like, I want to see like Sons of Anarchy meets Tatooine. Yeah, I want to see full on gangster wars going on. Like, it's The Sopranos, but with Boba Fett.
And I'm so excited for that show. My hype for that show. And like, that's the thing is, I love how they do this thing now with Star Wars shows where the stuff in the trailers is probably only from the first couple episodes of the show. And then everything after that is just completely left up to you. It's up to your imagination.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, again, this is a Filoni Favreau thing, but they're very good at managing expectations.
Yeah.
They're very good at subverting expectations. I feel like a lesser reserved filmmaker creator would have been like, all right guys, here comes the Mandalorian, wait till you see the huge surprise at the end of the first episode, wait till you see it. But they didn't say anything. They kept it a secret, and they didn't like try to say it was a big thing. Whereas conversely, the one thing I didn't like about WandaVision was they kept making me think that we're going to have some kind of a huge revelation at the end of this. And then they brought in the Quicksilver from the Fox universe. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be the beginning of the multiverse. And the other universe is going to be the Fox X-Men. And it might be what they're doing with Spider-Man now, kind of. But like, I thought it was then. And it turned out they're like, no, we just cast this guy just to be a troll. Like, that's really what it was. It annoyed me. That and the fact that the guy who plays Vision did an interview talking about how he has this fight in the last episode with an actor he respects a lot and has always wanted to film a scene with. And it's himself. Because everyone's like, oh my God, who's it going to be? Who's Robert De Niro going to be playing? Like,
that's funny.
Yeah, I'm really excited for where Star Wars is going to go. I mean, one of the biggest messages for us on our channel is that now is like the best time to be a Star Wars fan. Absolutely. With all the new media coming out, with all of the, all the announcements coming out all the time. You've just got so much to look forward to, and there's just so much storytelling that has yet to even be produced. And like the Obi-Wan show, like, oh, come on. Like, that is just, I never thought it would happen.
Yeah, neither did I. I mean, that's going to be one of those ones. That's like a layup, right? Like, that's going to be hard to not be good.
Yeah, right.
It's hard to mess up, which I'm already concerned because I've already heard things like how bad the script was, that they had to rewrite the whole thing, and that's why it's taking so long.
Really?
So I'm hoping that all that's not true, but we'll see. Favreau and Filoni aren't involved in it, so I immediately, like, the alarm goes off. Like, those two are like Star Wars royalty right now. Anything they touch is good. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm hoping that now that we have this technology, the way they deep fake Luke so well, I want to see more stuff after Return of the Jedi, because I spent the entire 90s and early 2000s in my head fantasizing about what happened at the end of Return of the Jedi afterwards. I read every book. I wanted to know what happens next. What happened to Luke? How much more powerful did he get? Were there more Sith Lords? Like, I wanted to know all of that. And so little was touched on. Like, a huge part of Star Wars to me is the lore, the history of it. And I am like, my second most disliked movie, it will shock everybody, but it's Rogue One. I didn't like it because I know I'm a Jedi and a Sith guy. I need to have my Jedi. I need to have my Sith. Without them, it feels dirty. Solo was it redeemed itself by having Darth Maul in the end. Spoiler alert, 4 years later. I know. Sorry. But yeah, like, I need to have that. Like, that the Jedi Sith storyline all the way back through the Old Republic is my favorite stuff. Because it really, I got a dark sense of humor and I got a dark sense of drama. I really enjoy hearing all the crazy dark stuff that went on. Like, there's stories about, like, and this is now Legends, it's not canon, the Emperor, the Death Star plans, like he kept killing the guy and then bringing him back to life. That was his torture. He'd torture him to death and then bring him back to life if he messed up on the Death Star plans. Like that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, it's dark. Tell me more. You know, Luke going to the dark side in a Dark Empire and things like that. I was just like, you know, I remember probably like 2002. Well, probably even before that. I found like someone took the Dark Empire comic and made it into a movie script. And they basically like, it was like Reddit before Reddit. They're like, look, I found the script for the next movie. And I'm like, oh my God, I got it. And I sat in front of my computer and I read the entire thing. And I'm like, it was amazing. And then I get this. I'm like, oh, it's not amazing. So, but like if they would have done that, if you guys are familiar with like the Thrawn trilogy, the first expanded Star Wars universe, that's what should have been. That should have been the sequel trilogy. Do that, age adjust the characters, because I realize that's supposed to be 5 years. But I wanted to know a lot. Like, again, I don't want to say like the history nerd in me. Like, I wanted to know why the New Republic didn't work. Why did this government fail? The last government failed because the Jedi got completely duped by some dude. You know, I wanted, like, I love everything about Palpatine. Like, I love hearing stuff of his story. If you haven't read Darth Plagueis, it is the best Star Wars book ever written, hands down. You know, that's one of those things that, like, if you're going to develop a movie, develop a movie about like the backstory of Palpatine and have it end at the beginning of episode 1. Like, have it end with him like making the call to Padme. Like, that would be such a great movie.
Yeah,
I got you.
I have my theory about where all these shows are going to go with like Mando and Boba Fett and now Ahsoka. My theory is that because the point of the Ahsoka show is to go find Ezra, who is with Thrawn, that eventually we'll kind of get to like an MCU style finish where it's a fight between Thrawn is the big bad and we have him against people like Mando, Boba, Ahsoka working together to fight him. And then you could have Luke in there too, because they have, I mean, I know Mark Hamill himself said that the actor that they used for his deep fake.
So that was him, I was told. He said it was him. It was him.
In that shot it was, yeah. But they had they had like a stunt actor almost that looked
for all the moving scenes.
Yeah. And Mark Hamill was like, oh, this guy looks better than I do. Like this guy could literally take my role. So like I wouldn't mind if it was even like a recast of someone who looks like Mark Hamill.
Yeah, you know? I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
I'm totally fine with it.
For those scenes, they did both. They did one shot of just Luke acting it out, like Mark Hamill, and then they had the other guy doing it, so that way they could match the face performance from Mark Hamill, so that way they can match it for the deep fake, and
makes sense.
So they wouldn't just be relying on the computer generation. That way, an artist's hand could also move into it and correct small things, so that way it looked even better.
Well, the deep fakes come a long way. I mean, the stuff they did with The Irishman, making Robert De Niro look like he's 40.
That was a good movie.
Incredible. The only problem with the deep fake is it doesn't do anything for the rest of the body. So you have 40-year-old looking Robert De Niro walking around like he's 80, because he is.
Right.
Like he's limber. He's not limber. It's very clear it's an old man walking.
Yeah. But I think that the technology is just we're finally getting to that point, and I think that we're getting to the point where we can have a story like that, where we have this giant climactic battle with characters like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and other people like that. And it doesn't have to be someone who doesn't look like them. They can at the very least look close to them with this kind of technology.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting with it. I'm very curious to see what the future of Star Wars is. I'm very curious to see what the future of the toy lines are. You know, we're 7 or 8 years into the Black Series now. They've slowed down greatly on the 3 3/4 inch, but that community is very
strong.
Very strong. But it's a tough. It's like, here's the problem: they've made everything. They have a couple background characters to make, but then like it's one of those things. People are like, why don't they just make these characters? Because if they make everything, they have nothing left. You can only re-release the same thing so many times
before people get bored of it.
And yeah, it's going to be very interesting. They have to continually have new stuff. Marvel's in the same spot now because they're running out of big properties to do. Like they have, I guess that's kind of a lie. As long as they have the X-Men and Fantastic Four, they'll be okay. But the Avengers, they're now into like, they're out of people. When we get to the Eternals, we're out of people. Like I was sitting there the other day and I'm like, I wonder who they could do. And I'm like, oh crap. Like we're at like pretty backwater characters at this point. And I haven't seen the Eternals, but from what I hear, and it makes sense, the big problem there is you have 10 brand new characters in 120 minutes to try to make you care about 10 different people. And instead of, like you basically don't grow an attachment to any of them because there's just trying to make too many people a character at once, and that there's not a good enough big bad in the movie.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing from people I trust. I haven't bothered. That one I'll wait to see. Spider-Man, I got to go buy my tickets. I keep forgetting that. I'll go see on opening night.
Man,
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
That one's going to be met with serious hostility. I'm just going to call my shot right now because it doesn't matter how good it is. People are going to be mad about something. If there's no Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, people are going to be mad. If they are in it and there's a plot hole, people are going to be mad.
I'm going to be happy with it either way.
I'll be happy with it no matter what. Like I'm getting another Spider-Man movie. I'm getting my favorite Doc Ock back. I'm good. Like that's one of my favorite castings ever. Having that guy back in, Alfred Molina, I love it. So I'm very curious to see how it goes. Now, Tobey Maguire was my favorite Spider-Man just because of nostalgia. They were my favorite Spider-Man movies, even though I think the most suitable Peter Parker is probably Tom Holland. Now it was announced yesterday, Daredevil's not done, but we're not telling you where he's going to show up again.
Exactly.
I think he's going to show up in the new Spider-Man movie because
I think he might show up before that.
I agree.
I think he's going to be in it just because he's a lawyer, and in lots of the trailers for Spider-Man, it seems like he's falling under scrutiny and going to have to face some sort of trial for the murder of Mysterio, which he's being framed for. And having a really cool character who just happens to be a lawyer.
Oh, how about this one?
Lego just came out with kind of matches up really nicely.
So if you remember correctly, do you remember when it was the Captain America Winter Soldier came out? They timed the release of the movie with the Hydra reveal with the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it all happened at once. I'm kind of wondering if Hawkeye, which is happening in New York, season finale, which is going to happen right about the same time as this movie's released, will there be any sort of crossover? Because it's all going on at the same time in the same place.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It would make sense because it seems like my theory is we're going to see Kingpin at the end of
Without a
Hawkeye.
doubt.
And I think it's going to be the same casting from the guy that was in Daredevil.
It is. He already said it.
So it's going to be great.
And Daredevil might surprise people, is my number one Marvel character. He's 1A.
Really?
Yeah. He's 1A. Punisher's 1B.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to a 3, it's a gigantic mess. But for whatever, it's probably Nightcrawler. But yeah, like he is my Marvel guy. I've always loved Daredevil. I've read almost every modern issue. So yeah, I would love to see him back. That show was mostly amazing when they had that on Netflix. When they started getting into dragon bones and crazy stuff, I'm like, all right, I'm lost. But for a while there, I was in. I was hooked.
Oh yeah.
That's how I was with the Punisher show on Netflix. I love that show. It's so good.
To me, that's still one of the best parts. That's one of the bad things about Disney owning it, though. We'll never get that level of like you're gonna only get the watered down Punisher. You're not.
We're never gonna see him
crazy Punisher.
We're never gonna see a man's face get deformed by a dumbbell again in the Marvel universe.
We're not gonna see that. We're not gonna see someone's foot get hit with a drill. We're not gonna see any of that kind of stuff. And it's not to say that I need it, but it's almost like, do I want like watered down Punisher, or do I want to just be like, oh yeah, he's gone. Well, where'd he go? He just left. Like it's kind of like, what's worse?
Like
I
if I wanted a watered down Punisher, If I wanted a watered down Punisher, I'd watch the '80s movie. It's like that's just a fact.
Like, I don't want to have it. Like, you notice that they don't use too many guns. Like, I guess they do just Black Widow, but like they refrain from too many guns, which isn't a bad thing. I guess they really don't. It's really just nobody needs guns except Natasha. Everybody else has something better to kill people with. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't see. I mean, he's always kind of not fit into the Marvel universe proper. He's like one of the few guys who are never like doing when he does crossovers. It's because someone like Daredevil's going after him, something like that, or the Avengers are taking him down. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing a show where it's like basically Oz, but with the Punisher in prison, because there's been a couple series like that where it's like we put the Punisher in Rikers. Good. No, it's not going good. He's having a ball. Like, I would love to see a show of that where he's just like Rorschach and Watchmen, just going after everybody. That's another show, the movie that divided people. I really enjoyed that movie. I like it better than the comic, actually. You know. What other questions you guys got? Anything else I can hit you with?
That's all I got right now.
That's all we were gonna say. Yeah.
We also are about to run out of battery on our audio.
Yes.
Nice. On our audio device here. So
nice.
I guess
that works out because I'm getting tired and I'm an old man now, so I need my beauty sleep.
Yeah.
So I mean, hey, well, thank you so much, Nerdzoic, for being on the show. So something that we actually like to do is we like to pull up our guests' YouTube, social media, whatever. So in this case, we're actually going to pull up your YouTube channel here.
Nice. There it is.
And so I'm gonna
there it is.
Just
right
grab this. Thank you, Jacob. I see it.
It's right there.
See, I struggle with technology, believe it or not.
I'll tell you what, it doesn't get easier than StreamYard though. So
that's true. That's very true. Which speaks volumes about how bad I am with it.
That's why I use it.
So right here is Nerdzoic's YouTube channel. If you are not already subscribed to Nerdzoic's YouTube channel, what are you doing? Go subscribe to it.
Do it.
Got some great collecting, not just Star Wars, Marvel, NECA, everything. You got some awesome content, Mythic Legions, everything like that.
I've been getting my Marvel Legends fix and my NECA fix out of his videos recently, just because I don't know who else to watch, and quite frankly, I love his lists a lot. So highly recommend him.
Very, very helpful videos.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Yeah, check me out, people. I appreciate that.
And yeah, so that about wraps up our Have a Chat episode. This has been the most mediocre podcast in the Star Wars universe.
Jacob, do you want to run down the script?
Sure. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok now. We're on, I said Instagram already.
Spotify.
You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, Anchor, wherever podcasts can be streamed or listened to. And make sure to subscribe and leave a like on this video and leave a comment. Don't forget to join our stop whispering it in my ear, Jackson. I know what to say. Don't forget to join our Discord. We have lots of fun conversations in there about Star Wars. I've been getting bugged a lot about getting into NECA by the fellas out of the basement. We talk a lot about music in there a lot as well. It's just we have a grand old time and it's not a toxic setting. So feel free to join. It's great. I think that's everything though.
So everybody, thank you so much for watching. Again, Nerdzoic's link to his YouTube channel and social media will be in the description below. And thanks again for listening. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Peace out, everybody.